try not to get distracted about the fleeting image that you're scrolling past online and really figure out what it is that you want to make. And it doesn't have to be a monetizable thing at first. I feel like a lot, especially, post-COVID, everybody's like, oh, I got this new hobby. How can I make money? How can I get a sponsor? I was just taking pictures, bro. Knowing what I know now, I would have had more fun then. I was so focused on to be a pro, trying to be, not I am a pro, like the lines are so blurred between work and fun because what I do as a hobby photographer is also what I do as a professional. So I'm in capture one, bouncing between, but it doesn't feel the same because I'm not able to have as much fun because I got deliverables, bro.
Yeah.
So if you're just starting out, meet people, collaborate with each other, build together, and have fun with photography.
Yo, Mark Clennon, welcome to the Black Shutter Podcast. How you feeling out there, bro?
Feeling great, man. Happy to be here. Happy to be here talking to you.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. So, your work, popped up for me. I don't remember when, everything is kind of a blur since the pandemic, right? But it's one of those things where there was some work that popped up that actually got my attention. And then I realized you had made a bunch of other work before. I was like, oh, okay. I actually been a fan for a while, so it's great to have you on the podcast, man. Where you calling in from?
Calling in from Los Angeles, California.
All right. And where are you from originally?
Originally from Florida. So born and raised in Florida. After college, I moved to New York, spent 10 years there. And now I'm in LA. So I've been in LA about almost exactly 2 years now. So I still feel very much like a New Yorker in Los Angeles. But I am a Los Angeles resident as of now. Yeah.
Wow. So you sort of like doing the whole like triangle thing, man. You from southeast, dipped up north, then went all the way out west.
Yeah.
That's cool, man. It seems like you keep going towards the sunny states.
Yeah, just wherever the motion is, I try to be there. And it was a change of pace. I lived in Harlem for 70 years, Brooklyn for 2 years. So it was a nice change of pace to come out here to LA. And I'm happy to be back in New York pretty often anyway. So I kind of have the best of both worlds right now. So I'm happy with it.
For sure. What part of Brooklyn were you in?
I was in Williamsburg when I first moved to New York, like 2011. Then I moved to Park Slope for 1 year, and I realized that wasn't my speed. Then I moved to Harlem. And I'm going to Harlem after
this. There you go.
Yeah.
It's a lot of Black folks when they come to New York go to Harlem.
Yeah,
and I could definitely see that because that is like the Black Mecca of the city. Even though I'm from Brooklyn, I rep Brooklyn like all day, every day. But I could see how Harlem will have like that little bit of it might have some more of that essence, at least for like Black Americans, but then Brooklyn would be more like Caribbean, what I mean?
Yeah, for sure.
So cool, man. So definitely glad to have you on the show. Your work, you have some really strong portrait work. You've been able to document across the board, right? Like I see like strong portraiture. I see it in regards to editorial work, in commercial work, even documentary work. So I definitely want to, talk with you about some of your photos to hear your process of making this work so that people out there who are fans of your work can kind of get an understanding of how you create and some of the roadblocks you have to overcome and some of your, inspirations, you know what I mean? So this first image, I'm going to share my screen. This first image I'm going to share. All right. So this image, right, I wasn't going to share initially. And then I heard you talking about it. And this is an image of Black nurses and medical staff and, caretakers with their fist up with masks on. So it looks, during the pandemic. But why don't you go ahead and explain this image to us and why this image is important to you?
Yeah, this is, one of my favorite images. I mean, I'm known for like colorful images, but like this is one of my favorite because this is like an image that I feel like only I could tell or only I can capture and see before I hit the shutter. So it is an image just during the George Floyd protests in 2020. We're walking down, I think, Madison Avenue. Everything's shut down. Everything's masked up. This wasn't my first protest, but it was my first protest experience during COVID. So
Mhm.
I'm masked up, PPE, all of that. Um, this is like May 30th, 2020. I'm going down Mount Sinai, past Mount Sinai, and I see these doctors, these black doctors or nurses or medical professionals with their fist raised. And immediately I thought about my upbringing. Like my grandmother was a nurse and my mom is a doctor, right? And I saw my mom, go through the whole process of going to school. She had me at 19, 20. So, I'm with her at college campuses as she's studying, to try to become a doctor. She didn't become a doctor until I was in high school, right? So, or yeah, high school. So knowing everything, talking to my mom during the pandemic, she's at work, an essential worker, caring for sick, pregnant people with COVID, and she's battling two fronts. Where as a black woman, the attack on Black lives are continuously happening. That continue to happen. It's like coming to a head, and COVID-19. Like these battles are happening concurrently for Black people in the medical profession. So when I saw these Black women in scrubs with their fists raised, supporting the protest as we walk by, it just reminded me like, okay, this is like a two-part story that I've been able to identify. And I see my family in this. I empathize with my mother and my grandmother and all the medical professionals that are in my family because we're having to deal with a pandemic and a fight for our lives at the same time. So I snapped this photo
Mhm.
on my favorites just because it had that meaning. And then you have like the bonuses where, healthcare workers fighting for our lives, comma, thank you. Like it kind of captions it for itself. That wasn't one of the things I initially saw when I made the photo. There's little nuances about all the Black people, 100% engaged in the protest, and then you have like a white person in the back less engaged. I don't know that gentleman, maybe he was, but like I always like
That's
curious, like
crazy.
what's on the phone,
Mhm.
um, where these Black people are really engaged in what's
Mhm.
happening in this moment. It just tells a story. I don't recall seeing that specific person in real life when I made this image, but these are the type of images that date themselves. I put a time marker in my life and overall culture as we move further along away from 2020. It just gives more context into that time
Mhm.
because it was a weird time. We didn't have a vaccine or none of that. It was just we were just outside. So yeah.
Didn't know what was happening, man. And it's funny you mentioned the white man disengaged in the background. It almost reminds me of some of the other protest photos I've seen where, you got the whole street full of protesters, and then you have, oh my bad, then you have um, like a bunch of white people at a outside eating at a diner or a restaurant,
Yeah, yeah,
like completely unfazed while there's like this protest happening in the background. It's just like sometimes people can just live in two completely just like separate realities. You know what I mean?
right, right,
Um,
right.
it's also interesting that when we take photos, we find nuances later, and it
Hmm.
almost makes the viewer feel like we're geniuses when all of these nuances, you know, you recognize them all. You're like, wow, this person, yo, they saw all of that. Nah, we ain't see all of that, but maybe not consciously. I think sometimes we do see these things, but we position ourselves, compose it in a way where we get the main part of it, and subconsciously, we might have saw that, but that wasn't like that sign that says, healthcare workers fighting for our lives. You might have seen it, but it didn't register like as a detail that was going to make sense when you actually see the image,
Right.
and it's always cool when those things show up later on.
Yeah.
And one thing else to mention is, I know you said this was like a twofold story, right? Your mother and your grandmother coming from the healthcare profession, and then also like the protests happening, and so it was personal for you and probably personal for your mother. But then also remember, like, we're black men, right? So
Mhm.
there's that extra layer of worry
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
that our parents have for us, young black men, and you're in New York, so it's just like a whole, another layer,
Yeah.
added to it, So I'm happy to hear that this is one of your favorite photos, and that makes me happy that I actually put it in at the last minute.
Mhm.
So I'm glad to hear that, man. I know that you photograph a lot of variations of portraits from like
Yeah.
fashion, commercial, editorial. Um, this photo looks like it was during the pandemic as well, right? Why is this type of portrait important to you?
Yeah, I mean, this one specifically, this is around the same time. This is all during the height of the protest. This might have been a couple of days after. This is for the New Yorker. And again, this is another text play, right? These were, transportation professionals holding their own protests actually outside one of their garages blocking the street. And uh, I spotted this black man. I'm like, yo, can I take your portrait real quick? We walked over to the bus because I saw the not in service. I was in an Uber actually on the way to assignment. When the road blocked the Uber, so I just hopped out. I mean, we couldn't go anywhere. Anyway. And I remember he asked me, he's like, "Do you want me to take off my watch glove?" I'm like, no, 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 no. Leave it on. Like now we know exactly what your job is, what role do you play, and today you're not in service. You've had enough.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's done.
Mm-hmm.
We're not working today. So the whole protest in the nutshell, especially with him being an essential worker, it really told the full story for me. And it feels New York. Like if you've driven around that part of Brooklyn, you know exactly kind of where it is at, where the buses stop at. So it just felt very New York. I like his hat to the back. There's a lot of little details of him as a man and what he does as a profession. He works hard. And I feel like a lot of the conversation, especially leading up to was, everybody's in working from home. We're on Zoom, we're off work. But like most people weren't off work. They were delivering the food for us or watching these buses. They were driving these buses. And I didn't want those people to be forgotten about.
Mm-hmm.
Talk about this time, especially as the, creative professionals where a lot of times we're making briefs and I'm going out photographing, making sure we're telling the stories of real people. And this was a great play for me as I saw, the non-service. It just lent itself. So he's standing right in front of the bus. It just feels good and balanced. We have enough context to the street. I like a lot of these shots that I shoot in New York when you have a little bit of a peak of like a vehicle, because in 30 years that vehicle is going to look so old. You know what I'm saying? Like I see some of the old Gordon Parks images, and like you'll see a car in the background. I was like, that's like a 19 something. Mm-hmm. That's cool, but it didn't stick out at the time because that was a normal vehicle. So that I don't know what kind of car it is in the background, but I like to have those cars in the background to kind of help date the images make it.
So you like to have your photos have like those hints at what date it is and the era.
Yeah, I think for me in this and the mindset I was in during this time, uh, I wanted to capture as much of those things you might forget about because I knew this was a singular moment in everybody's lives. Like like the whole world experienced it at one time, COVID. Mm-hmm. So it was literally a biblical event. You know what I'm saying? Like, where were you? I don't know where you were on the earth. So I knew that the mass would be a time marker.
Exactly.
Story would be a time marker. So I just wanted to make sure we just got enough context, on top to bottom.
Indeed. This image right here is of a postal worker. So the previous image was of a dude who looked like he maintains and cleans like the MTA buses in New York. Mm-hmm. And now this is an image of a postal worker. We have the USPS logo and it looks like a truck in the background. And this feels like very similar image. Mm-hmm. It feels humanizing, but again, I would love to hear your thoughts on this image and why you decided to make it.
Yeah. Also 2020, during the protests, Mans was working. He was delivering mail. Mm-hmm. And there's so many times where people feel like the world stops for them. You know what I'm saying? When it doesn't, right? Mm-hmm. It's black. It's a lot of times it's black people keeping things working. And at the time, there was like a big thing with the post office or something like that. I don't remember exactly what the specific was. Politically, everybody was talking about the postal service and defunding it or whatever they went with it. But this man was working, and then the red, white, and blue in the uniform, like it puts us in the context of Black America that was largely unseen at times. And today you're gonna look at him in the eyes. And you want me to take my gloves off? No, keep the gloves on. Like It helps date, it helps date it for us.
Mhm.
And it's just a strong portrait, and I like the framing. I think I cropped in on this because I just like how the lights kind of cut off of the edges. I don't know. I just kind of when I had it wider, you didn't really notice the lights, but when you pop it in, you hear the three
Yeah.
lights on each side. It kind of brings everything in the center. Um,
You know, it's funny, those details you just mentioned are what I noticed as well. I
mhm,
noticed the red, white, and blue. And you know, what's interesting about photography is always interesting is that, you know, you see one thing and you press the shutter at a certain specific moment and you compose it the way that you do. Then I see it, and now it's up to me to interpret the photo based on my own particular lens. So I may not see what you saw, but I'm going to experience it complete. I may experience it completely differently, right?
mhm,
But in this image, it sounds like things that I was questioning, like, oh, was this done on purpose? Was this purposely focusing on like this red, white, and blue? Hmm.
yeah,
That's you know, something curious, you know, that pops in my head. And then the lights, they're cut in half, like they're circular lights, but they're cut. It's a half circles on
mhm.
the edges of the frame. And I'm like, was that done on purpose as well? And it looks very intentional. And to hear you say that, I'm like, I bet. So I'm picking up what you're putting down. You know what I mean?
I was thinking about the previous image of the man working the bus. I was thinking about that image when I
Yeah.
made this. Like I
And there's a
was
lot of similarities. I see
right,
that. That's why I put them back to back.
yeah. I was
Hmm.
thinking about that specific image. It lends itself as part of that same theme of like, here we are doing the work. Um, um, that's enough. You know what I'm saying?
Even with the blue, the same shade of blue
Hmm.
gloves to like clean or work with is like very very telling. You know what I mean? And still like the same colors, red and I mean white and blue dominate in both of these images. It feels very consistent. You know what I mean?
Yeah, thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome. So this image out of the bunch felt like one of the more outliers
Okay.
in your work, right? And it feels like this goes into more of the documentary style of portraiture. That at least that's what I see in it. Um, and this image to me feels like it represents the storyteller in you.
Hmm.
And I want you to, you know, take a look at this image and think about like how do you define what a visual storyteller is? What is a visual storyteller to you?
I think a visual storyteller. I'm not sure, but I know, I know that like the stories that I'm trying to tell are in one way or another my story, and like I'm only making images of things that remind me of other parts of my life, remind me of my
Mm,
help tell the story of my story. I'm pretty like I don't talk much, you
mhm.
know. I can talk when I need to, but like I'm a pretty introverted guy. But so like an image like this was part of an ongoing series that I'm going back home to Florida to film and photograph, and there's been a lot of conversation about like the state of black creatives in 2024. Like a lot of these dollars that was coming to black creatives have kind of just like paused or went
Disappeared.
or
Yep. Dried
disappeared.
up.
And it's a really weird time in the industry for us. And I've been having a conversation with a lot of my peers, and the one common theme is like a return to home. Like, I did a lot of the editorial photography, magazines, and etc. But like, what brings me the most joy is to tell uh, the story of like what I'm most familiar with. I live in LA, right? I spent a lot of time in New York, but I'm from Florida. Like, I'll never be from New York. I'll never be from LA because I was born and raised from 0 to 20, 20 something in Florida. So like that is my life.
Hmm.
I was the integral part of like who I am as a man. So this was at the Kodak Black car show in Pompano, Florida. And this man has a hairstyle called Wicks that is like Florida man through and through. You see this hairstyle, it is Florida, right?
I didn't know
Um,
it had a. I didn't know it had a name.
yeah, it has a name. It's called Wicks,
Wow.
right?
WIX.
WIX. ICK.
CKS.
Yeah.
Uh-huh. Wow,
Yeah.
okay.
So it's a type of like natural hair
Yeah.
lock that instead of regular locks, they kind of crochet the locks together and then like make long, thick locks like that.
Like Basquiat and Jay-Z.
Not quite. Well, his is a little bit more free form, but like actually, you know what? Jay Z does have wigs now. Yeah, the most recent photo I saw, they kind of crochet them together like real thick. Like sometimes when they do it and it sticks straight up in the air, like Bart Simpson, like
Yeah.
like that is a Florida hairstyle for me.
Ah, got you,
So
got you.
because I moved around so much, even as a kid and now as an adult, I'm understanding. I lived in Florida, that's the Gulf Coast, in Pensacola and Tampa. Lived in New York, the East Coast. Now I live in LA. Like I'm actually understanding small nuances and differences between Black people in different places. So I get a lot of joy educating Black people about other Black people. Like, oh, the Black people over here do it like we say this. You know what I'm saying? So like, even little like nuances and language, right? So like East Coast, Brooklyn or Harlem is Peace King. They call you King. And
Mhm.
LA is how you doing, Black man? You know? So it's like, okay, I'm noticing these little nuances in Black language, Black hair, across the diaspora. I'm just exploring and just kind of educating myself and people that I meet. Like, hey, did you know that? Do you know this is called Wicks in Florida? So a lot of what I'm doing is going back to Florida to document things that are familiar to me and how I grew up.
Mm.
I'm never going to find success, um, trying to tell a story that I'm not intimately, that I don't intimately care about.
Yeah. Even if you do find success there, it's not long lived. It disappears very quickly.
Well, yeah, I'm defining success as happiness in the work that I'm doing.
There you
Right.
go.
You
Yeah.
can make a lot of money and not feel happy. You know what I'm saying?
Then you're not
Uh,
successful.
right, right. So I recently reimagined what success was like to me. And I want people joy and happiness in what I'm making. So that I'm finding success by doing these projects for sure.
That's great. That's great. Yeah, thanks for you definitely educated me on that. I had no idea there was a specific name for it. I just thought it was just a thicker form of locks.
No, yeah,
But
I'm actually working on a full documentary about this. So that's been like an ongoing personal project. It's been over a year that I've been working on it. So like this image is part of a larger documentary,
mhm.
just like educate Black people on what we got going in Florida. So
That's dope, man. What part of Florida?
um I grew up all parts of Florida. So I say that like I said, my mom had me when she was 20. I was raised by two women. In Tallahassee, spent 8 years there, then moved to Tampa, then moved to Brevard. My family's from Brevard County, which is east of Orlando. My dad currently lives in South Florida. I went to high school in Pensacola. So
Mm.
the entire, I don't know, geography wise, that's the bottom of Florida all the way to the tip of Florida next to Alabama. I've lived in all
Wow.
of them. Yeah, the whole.
Wow. All right. It's funny you mentioned being raised by two women, because these next images are sort of like the flip side of that, right?
Right.
And this is the I forgot the title of it, but this is Fathers and Sons,
Right.
right? Can you tell us the title real quick?
It's the Father's Hands Project. Yeah.
Father's Hands Project. I love the title. I love the name of it.
Yeah.
And so right now we're looking at an image of a black father with an afro and a big beard, and he has like the pick with the black fist in it, and he's holding his son who has like a Batman shirt and his arms crossed, and the father has like a few rings on each hand. The boy has a little cut on his elbow. Man, it's a very very like dope, tender photo. I'm a father. My son. That could be a picture of me and my son because it would look like I'm almost the same age as the father, and the son is almost the same age as my son, right? So, and I didn't grow up with my father, so any projects or photos that just document um, the bond between black father and black son always hit me. Even and I watch movies, and if this scene, like the Spider-Verse movies, man, I almost always freaking choke up, man. When I see certain scenes, you know what I mean. So seeing these images and knowing that there's a whole project dedicated to the hands of Black fathers, and the reason why you decided to start making this project is really, really dope and is heartfelt. And I'm letting you know that from one Black man, one Black father to another, like this hits. You know what I mean? So, um, and then the second image is the actual hands, and it's the father's huge hands with all these rings. Looks like a, a metallic lion, and just all these decorative rings. There's a heart or a spade. It's just like you could tell this dude is about his accessories, right? And then you see the kid's hands on one of his hands. So it's a beautiful. It's in black and white, high contrast, beautiful image. Can you tell us a little bit about this project?
Yeah. So, my father and I have a great relationship. Every summer I would go to his house, stay with him. We used to work on cars together, like putting in the speakers in the trunk and running the cords up to the front. And I don't know, I was working on something. Like my dad is somebody I call whenever I got like an issue with something I gotta build or fix. Yo, hey, what this is? I can put my face. I was working on something. I was working on something, and I'm like, dang. I did a double take. I'm like, yo, my hands look like my dad's hands right now. Like I'm becoming a man. Like that's the first time I'm like, whoa, I'm not, I'm like, wow, I always kind of view myself as a young kid, young man, but like I'm looking at my hand like, dang, it look like my dad's hands. I'm like, wow, what a like powerful like experience this is.
Mm,
And I did some Googling, and there's no portrait series that exists that focuses on hands. I'm like, wow, what a cool idea to
mhm,
document fathers and sons in their hands. And this image, the first image you spoke about, where like the son is sitting in his dad's lap and the son has a cut on his hand and the Batman shirt. But if you look at their eyes, it's the same eyes, but they
mhm,
like copy and paste.
mhm.
Like, you know that is his father. You
That's
know
right.
that that's the son. Um, and so I just, put out a call in New York, and some fathers came with their sons, and we photographed their hands and their faces. And I think the one thing about hands is like the people that are closest to you in your life, you can recognize them by your hands,
Mm,
right? You think about like a father's hands, and sometimes they need a discipline. You know what I'm
mm,
saying? Sometimes it's helping me tap my elbow for a jump shot, or sometimes it's grilling on the barbecue. You're just looking at their hands. So like all these little scenarios where you're intaking part of a intimate part of somebody's body that you didn't realize, like, oh, wow, I can recognize, my father's hands, my father's handwriting. These are people you know best. And so I like the idea of masculinity and a tenderness, as well as like a discipline of the hands of a father, because you kind of fear them sometimes as a as a as a
You should
boy.
have. I think it's important to have a healthy fear
Yeah,
of elder man,
yeah, yeah,
just to kind of balance things out.
yeah,
I think you need you need that balance from both parents. You
yeah.
need like some tenderness from and some discipline from each, but it's gonna show up differently in each. And I have a friend who's like to this day he's in his 40s. He has two kids, and he says like there's still times when his father just said something a certain way, and he might be trying to get spicy, and his father just say something certain way. He was like, "Yes, Dad," right?
Yeah.
Like there's something special about that.
Yeah.
Is a level. It's a balance of respect and fear, like low level fear, right?
Mhm.
And it's not like fear of you're gonna get abused, but
Nah,
you need to have like that Mufasa Simba thing going. You know what I
yeah.
mean?
These are very tender pictures, and also
Mhm,
very masculine. It's cool to explore the definition of what masculinity is. It comes in different packages. Um, and this is an extremely tender,
mhm,
Rich. And I've sat with so many fathers and sons like this. Honestly, I make this project more from the perspective of a son than a father. I started this project before I had a child, right?
mhm,
And not only now am I starting to recontextualize it a different way. Now I'm a father of a daughter,
mhm,
right? Um, so like I would say, sometimes fathers and sons, they don't really know exactly what they're coming to. They just know they're getting their photos taken. So sometimes I have them sit next to each other, and
mhm,
their shoulders are touching, and you can see like a transference of like awkwardness, and I'm having them hold the hands. You know what I'm saying? There's a little bit of like, oh, these are barriers that I didn't expect to break down today. You know what I'm saying? So like to be able to like witness all these close relationships kind of, crossing into new territory by just forcing them to touch each other,
Hmm.
hold each other's hands has been very fascinating to see. And I feel like now, I've done it in LA, a couple sessions in LA and also New York. Now, just as being a father, just observing it in different ways, especially at all ages. So sometimes we got a toddler, sometimes we get the father, the son is 30
Hmm.
and dad's 50,
Hmm.
So it's a very special project to me. I want to do it for the rest of my life. I want to have a gallery where you walk in, it's white walls and just black and white photos of fathers and sons. That's
Yeah.
as you see. I think that's one of the most beautiful things about these images is anytime we have a group of images of black people and black and white people, like, okay, what's going on here?
Yeah. Yeah.
And let's force you to ask the question and explore, the tender relationships between us.
And black and white makes a difference in this series.
Mhm.
I mean, the thing is, man, like even if it was in color, it would work, right? Because the way our skin pops, right? Each background is like pretty plain, but black and white has a timelessness to it, and I can see, this going on for a very long time, like until your fingers doesn't work, right? Until you're
Mhm.
unable to hit the shutter, like
Yeah,
I can see this project just going because there's always going to be fathers and sons, and I
yeah,
think it's important to kind of see the presence of black fathers in their sons' lives.
yeah,
The
yeah.
sons in these images are going to grow up and see them and realize that yo, pops was there, or and have that memory of their father there as an influence on their lives. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? Like it's important, and a lot of times I feel like black artists, whether we're photographers, filmmakers, musicians, or whatever, we feel like this need to rewrite our narrative, and because of the way that media has been portraying us for so many years, right?
Mhm.
And I want to get to the point where we don't have to keep saying like, "Yo, black men are there, black men are at home, black men are taking care of their kids." Right? I want to get to the point where we don't feel like we have to always like show that we're there because we are there. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? But until that happens, man, we just got to keep hammering it home. Like, yo, not every household is broken up, and not every black father abandons their kid. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and people ask me, "Are you trying to change stereotype?" I mean, yes, but like I'm just documenting what's already there. I said, "Yo, black fathers and sons pull up." They pulled up. So, it wasn't hard to find them. You know what I'm saying? So, I think it's a testament to how many fathers and sons there are.
Hmm. Do you have a photo of you and your father?
Yo, my dad just left 3 days ago, and I'm like, dog, we
Left
haven't.
LA?
Yeah, like,
Oh.
he came to visit. I'm like, no, we haven't even done this because I'm trying to get my brother too. I'm trying to get my brother, the three of us in one. We're gonna get it done next time. I was talking to
you
my brother.
yo you have to, bro.
Got to.
You have to, especially since you know he's the reason the project exists. You looked at your hands and saw your dad's. It's like you got to get that photo,
Yeah,
man.
yeah.
I'm gonna be in your ear about it too, bro.
Please do, man.
I'm gonna
Please
be
do.
in your ear, man,
Yeah.
because that's that the project. It will be such a it would be disappointing not to
Oh, for sure.
have y'all in there. You know what I mean?
For sure.
So I hope to see that soon.
Yeah, we got
Um,
to come back over here. We're gonna catch a Lakers game and knock it out. That's the plan.
there you go. There you go. So I love this. I mean, this was a photo that actually stopped me in my tracks and said, okay, let me look deeper into this body of work, right? So I love the fact that, this ties in your family, like your father, into your work. But I wonder if you can talk about how art was viewed in your home growing up. Like, how did your family view the arts?
I don't think they really had the luxury of participating in art, man. Like, we didn't have much coming up for real. Um, both my parents had me. My dad was 19, my mom was 20. So, like, if I had like if I was my age that I am now, my daughter would be in high school or driving, and she's
Mhm.
4. You know what I'm saying? So like we're actually pretty close in age. There wasn't really much discussion about the arts. You know, only art I remember consuming was like the music we would listen to uh, in the car wherever they taking me. You know,
Mhm.
those memories kind of stick with me. But in terms of like, you know, my reason for image making,
Mhm.
because I moved around so much, I had a big feeling of like impermanence to wherever I was at. Like we in this apartment, and we moved to this apartment, moved to this apartment. I went to like 3 different high schools. I really, even when I got my first job out of college, I never decorated it. You know, people got it all set up with the photos. Like I never like felt a sense of permanence in where I was at. Um, which I think is one of the reasons why I love photography specifically as a medium. Because when you print it out and you put it on a wall, it stays there,
Mhm.
right? And you can grow up. Um, and like, yo, if it's in your grandma's house, right? You'll grow up as a child. You might see that image somewhere else. Like, yo, that reminds me of my grandma's house. That reminds me of home. You know, you can take a photo, you can gift it to somebody. It can get lost in the closet in stores. You can find it 15 years later. That's the only medium where you can really do that. Like, I love going to the movies. I love making films and watching films, but you can't just have the complete thesis of a statement in a frame on your wall, right? So the idea of image making and time marking is very important for me because I feel like because we came up with so little growing up, I don't have that many photos of myself, and I didn't really have pictures on the wall. So I love the idea of taking photos, printing them out, and putting them on the wall, just because they're permanent.
Mhm.
Even if they come down, you ain't gonna burn them. You know, you don't throw it away. They're gonna
Mhm.
exist somewhere. So um, that permanence is what drives my image making. And I'm thinking about when I'm doing this series, like, oh, I would love to have this time marker. I keep coming back to the word time marker and permanence because that's the most important part of photography for me. You know, outside of gear, coloring, film, is just like physical, um, something you can hold.
Mhm. So that's a very interesting breakdown of how you see time. And, I moved around a lot as well. And I always wonder, like, um, are photographers, okay, what comes first, right? Our ability to be observant of our environment, of our surroundings, of people's facial expressions, all of these different things that we, determine when we make the image. Does that come first, or do we develop it once we become photographers, in a sense, right?
Mm.
And it sounds like in your situation, moving around a lot, you gravitate towards photography because out of a sense of trying to create some sort of consistency. Is that right?
Yeah, you actually just jogged like a memory of mine. 'Cause like I said, I went to 3 different high schools. So if you imagine switching high school, new county, new zip code. Like
New
it's not
friends.
new, not like the next school down the street, like a brand new city.
Yeah.
You gotta sit back. You gotta like observe. Okay, all right, okay, this is how they talk over here. You know what I'm saying? Like I had to sit back and observe and like find my way. You know, and so I think a lot of that lends itself to me discovering photography just because I had to be an observer because I'm 14, 15. I'm just trying to like
Hmm.
head down, fit in. You know what I'm saying? And find some friends. So I think that sort of that muscle in my brain was probably working itself as
Hmm.
early as even though I didn't pick up a camera until like 27. You know,
I mean, the camera is just an extension of how we see the world, right? And
right?
if all your experiences up to that point when you got your camera um, helped you to kind of take a step back and be observant, like as kids, especially like adolescents going into teens, we can't just, it's hard to just move neighborhoods, move schools, counties, right, states, and
Yeah,
just automatically jump right in, right? Because we're gonna look different. Our clothes are gonna be whatever was in style back where I was at ain't in style here, right?
yeah,
Whatever I'm saying ain't may not be cool here. They may not understand it. So you have to be observant. And I
right.
think with photography, being observant is probably one of those invisible skills that nobody teaches you about being a really good photographer, a really good visual communicator. Is we have to not just roll up in the spot with our cameras blazing. Like that's gonna push some people away. We have to like, you know, just go in slow and, see what the situation is before we actually start making images. For some people,
Yeah.
not everybody is the same, right? Everybody has a different approach. But
Right.
I think that's something I always think about, right? Like whose personality is behind the camera. You know what I
Hmm.
mean? Um, I know you mentioned that you are your father. You have a 4-year old,
Correct.
right? Um, so this question I always ask. I'm always interested in knowing like how people want their work to be remembered, right? But I'm also curious, and I'll ask that question later. But how do you describe your work to your daughter, to a 4-year old? Like she says, Dad, Papa, whoever, Baba, what do you do for a living or whatever? How do you describe your particular style of photography to your daughter in a way that she can understand it?
No, I just expose her to it. Like I have a ton of photo books, and I leave them out on purpose. So she'll flip through them, and I like the color. What do you like? I like the colors of this one. All types of photography, street photography, fashion photography, fine art, in books. So she just kind of flips through them. I think it actually clicked for her as like it's what I do because there's cameras all over my crib. Like she might think that everybody has this many cameras at their house. No, that's not true. But it clicked for her, I think, when I brought her to the studio at the Black Image Center for the Father's Hands project. She was there. And then later on, we're eating, and she's like, "Oh, okay, Daddy's a photographer. He takes pictures."
Mhm.
And he's like, "So, mommy, what do you do?" And we just, it's just like, she's like, "Oh, I'm in marketing." Like it's not as easy to explain what she does as what I do. I take pictures. I can keep it very simple.
Yeah.
So pretty much every corner of the wall, every piece of wall really has some artwork, some of mine, some friends. So I just right now just want her to just be surrounded by it. And then when she's elsewhere, she'll seek out and feel comfortable by
Mhm.
just surrounded by art. Like I recently took her to the Gordon Parks show here at Pace Gallery. Um, and we walked around and she liked the girls with the dresses that were her age.
Mhm.
And just making sure she just sees a lot of
Yeah.
it. That is just the easiest way to just ease her into. If she doesn't want to do it, that's fine. That's totally fine. But I think she's building an appreciation for images for sure.
That's pretty dope. Especially that she's gravitating to the images where she sees herself in the images, which is important. I think the exposure is important.
Mhm.
As often as I can, I bring my son with me to shoots. I include him in projects. We did this project for we did a Christmas card, a holiday card a few years. He was a baby.
Yeah.
Um, but that was the only way I would do a holiday card. My wife was like, just send out holiday cards. I'm like, ah man, I ain't dressing up in matching pajamas. I'm not doing that shit, right? Um, but I was like, if I do, it has to be something creative. So we made this whole project with my son, and like that was cool. And then as he got older, whenever possible, I would bring him on set so that he can just be exposed. Like again, he doesn't have to go into the industry, but if he does, at least he knows he has resources. He sits in some of my brainstorm sessions with some of my friends, and um, he'll raise his hand like, "I have an idea," and me and my homies will sit back and we're like, "All right, go ahead, shoot." And he's like, "What if blah 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 blah?" I look at my friend, he look at me, we're like, "Yo, that's going down." Like we write it down and we consider it, right? And it's like, and he's like, "Yeah, yeah, yeah, yeah." But it's not like to humor him. It was actually a good idea. And I
Yeah.
think what's important about that is him having the awareness and also it not being foreign. So when it does come time that like if he does decide to get anywhere in the industry with a lens-based industry, he knows that he can be there because he's seen it before. He knows what is possible.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
I think that's super important to expose them. I was once on this photo shoot. I was photographing this woman named Marilyn May Bevins.
Hmm.
Marilyn Bevins. I might be getting the first name wrong, so pardon me, but she was one of the first African American marathoners to like break 4 hours or something
Wow.
like that, right? And she's older in her 60s, and you can imagine like there weren't a lot of women, female marathoners, let alone black marathoners. So I was photographing her for I think ESPN, and she looked at my camera and she was like, "You have are you have any children?" I was like, "Yeah, I have a son." She was like, "Does he know how to do what you do?" I was like, "Nah, I mean he's kind of young, but I let him play around with the buttons and stuff like that." She was like, "Your son should know what you do. He should know what your mother does, or what his mother does as well. Like
Mhm.
the kids should. They don't have to be professionals at it, but they should at least know how to do some of the
Right.
things that you do."
Mhm.
And that actually always stuck with me, right? Because when you think about photography, some of the most unique photographers or the most unique bodies of work come from people who have an interest or a hobby that is completely unrelated to photography, but they understand how to use the camera.
Right.
And then they
Right.
bridge the two things together, right?
Right.
And that to me is like, oh, that's how you start getting food photography, architectural photography, science, like microscopic photography. Like people are doing some amazing things with the lens. And it's not just because they said, I want to do photography, it's because they have an idea or interest and they just pick up the camera to document that interest. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So yeah, I definitely want to make sure he knows how to use the camera so that he can go off and do whatever he wants with that understanding as well.
Yeah. And ultimately, photography is storytelling, right? So whether you're a writer, screenwriter, a podcaster,
Mhm.
an art director, like it is a visual language where you're trying to tell a story, and photography is a story where you got to tell the whole thing in
Yeah.
1/200th of a second. Like,
Yeah.
how much information, how much of a story can you get out of this one singular moment in time? I feel like
Hmm.
just being able to concisely tell a story is
Yeah.
applicable to sales, is applicable to poetry,
Yep.
to journalism. So I think thinking that way could only be a net positive.
100%. Now we're starting to get into some of your it looks like some of the earlier images. It feels like, you know, um earlier in your career. And now, I'm starting to see celebrities, right?
Mm.
This is a black and white image of YG. And something I see again, strong portraiture. The image looks clean as hell, right? It looks like the megapixels are all the way up, and the lighting is controlled, right? And then the subject matter, right, is a little bit more exclusive, right?
Mm.
Before we saw like a MTA worker, somebody cleaning the bus, somebody working in USPS, and a dude just hanging out in the park. But now we're getting into the realm of um, people's time being super um, limited, right?
Right.
Whenever you start to photograph celebrities. So you're at a point where people are trusting you to go in with a limited amount of time and bang out a bunch of dope images, right? And this is just one image from this collection. It's a black and white image of YG. He has like uh got a bunch of ice on his neck, cross. He's holding up the three with his, and in the circle between his pointer finger and his thumb, you can see his eye. He's looking through that hole, and it's a clean image. Um, but what I notice is that you're able to pull a lot of personality out of the people that you photograph. So for you, like, when did it click that you have a gift with the camera? Because getting like portrait work, there's a collaboration between the person being photographed and the person doing the photographing, right? So when did you realize like I can actually use this camera to bring out a personality in somebody that I'm photographing?
Um, it's a culmination of a lot of life experiences that have lent itself to me being successful at this venture that I'm on currently. I think I broke out of my shell really for real in college. I was like an orientation team leader. I was MC at the mic and I'm rounding up the crowd. That was very, that was very like uh, different than what I had done in high school. I didn't participate in anything in high school except basketball, right?
Mhm.
In college, I was involved in all the campus activities and fraternity and stuff like that. So I think that kind of lent itself to just being able to bring energy out of people when they might be tired or not have a lot of time and just research. So I knew YG.
Mhm.
I think he has a classic album. My Crazy Life is a classic to me, right? And I'd never been to LA when that album came out, but I knew it was important to. I mean, he was an important figure in Los Angeles, so I listened to all his records again. I in YouTube, listen to every interview I could find, every article I can read. If I have limited time, I got to be able to connect with these people instantly. Like, okay,
Mhm.
this person like knows who I am and cares about the images that we're gonna make, and I just we have a good game plan when we're coming in, and then I just let them do their thing. I mean, he's been photographed a lot, so I knew he always wears the bandana. And I knew he always wears like high socks with like loafers.
Mhm.
That's great, So like, okay, let me get those images by themselves. Like, I want
Mhm.
to get specifically the bandana, specifically the loafers. And then for this set, I specifically wanted the black and white because there's so much, color. There's a lot of color politics out
Mhm.
in LA. So I'm like, I will do black and white, because I'm sure he's going to want some red stuff. We'll have some red stuff as well. But um, just like making him the breaking them down into icons like the jewelry, the eyes, the hair wrap, and the shoes is really what my goal was coming into this. And I'm actually very proud of this shoe because I've just recently found out that someone took an image from this specific set and made a mural of YG
Oh shit.
Compton. I'm like, I gotta go see that. Like,
Yeah.
that's exactly what I had in mind when I'm thinking about these images. Where can it live offline? Right. And the fact that they chose that photo well, not this specific photo, but a photo from this set
Mhm.
as the mural is giant, it's a giant
Wow.
wall. So I'm like, that's one of my bigger accomplishments. It's like, culturally, it's more relevant to me than a billboard on Sunset. You know what I'm saying? Because
Mhm.
that mural gonna be there. You
And
know?
the billboard is paid for, is it's designed
Yeah,
for like commerce. This
yeah,
is the mural is designed for culture. It's
yes,
like it's a cultural statement.
uh-huh.
Somebody took time to like do craft handmade. You know what I mean?
Right, right, right. They
Based on
spent,
something that was inspiring to them first off, right?
yeah,
So that's actually dope, bro. Congratulations on that. That must be a amazing feeling to have.
yeah, for sure, for sure.
So let me ask you, right? Um, what music you have playing when YG walks on the set?
Oh yeah, I wasn't sure. So I started out with his records.
You play his
And
own music during
yeah,
the
because I'm
set?
like, can't go wrong with that. And then he was like, put it on whatever, like the Spotify. What's the
Spotify radio.
rap caviar? Put on rap caviar. I'm like,
Uh-huh.
all right, cool. So we just listened to like the top rap records. Then I put some like old school stuff outside
Mhm.
with that. Like I do a lot of, I think like intention setting for me is good. Like a lot of times,
Mhm.
like I read somewhere like you remember more lyrics to more the songs that came out when you were 17.
Mhm.
A lot of times I will find whoever I'm photographing, date back to when they were 17 years old, and
Ah.
16, 17, 18, pick records from that year, and then it comes on like, oh, so some songs I've never heard before, but they're like, oh, what you know about this? Especially if they're regionally relevant.
Yo,
Uh,
that's dope. And I don't know if y'all heard that. So I need to rewind what he just said. For anybody out there who does portrait work, you do studio work with personalities, right? Not like still life, but personalities. Yo, that's a game changer, man. I think we should all go out there and try that next time, man. Like to figure out when that person we're photographing was 17, what was rocking for them at the time. That's actually really dope.
yeah,
That's actually really dope, man. So yo, take note of that for real, y'all. But all right, go ahead.
yeah, that's what I did for. We probably talked about this later. But that's what I did for Mike Tyson as well.
Mm-hmm.
So some of that stuff that was playing, I had never heard. He's like, "What do you know about this? This is Brownsville." I'm
Mm-hmm.
like,
Were you playing MOP?
"Some, some,
Play,
some, some."
yo. So speaking of Iron Mike, man, Bong, who we got up next? It's
Uh-huh.
it's the homie, man. Yo, I saw so I was mentioning earlier, like there was a few photos that actually like stopped me in my tracks, right? And it was this the session, it was this session that you did with Mike Tyson, right? And I didn't see this image back when I first was stopped. It was some of the ones that are coming up next, but I just felt like to be tapped on the shoulder to photograph someone as iconic as Mike Tyson is a big deal. Like, is a big deal because he doesn't trust a lot of people. He does not trust a lot of people. He's been burned throughout several times in his career. Um, he's a big personality, and he's almost taken the role of philosopher. Like when you hear Mike, it's like it's amazing
Yeah.
how simply put, like he just drops jewels while he's like getting high as shit, right? Like, but he's genius. He's a philosopher, and so I just felt like for them to tap you, whoever tapped, I think it was Flaunt. Was it Flaunt magazine or
It was Ink Magazine.
Ink?
So I got YG for the first time, Ink Magazine.
Mm-hmm.
Block for this one, yeah.
Yeah, dope. So to be tapped to photograph Mike, I felt like is a pretty big accomplishment. It speaks to who you are as a photographer, right? So,
Yeah.
what was going through your head when you got the call to photograph Mike Tyson?
Yeah, no, I think this is probably the first time publicly I've spoken about it, so I'm very glad it's here. But so I got that, I got tapped to photograph Mike with like 3.5 weeks advance notice. And if you know anything about like how these editorials work, a lot of times they'll be like, "Hey, can you shoot such and such tomorrow, next week, days, 4 days?" 3.5 weeks for Mike Tyson. I'm like, all right,
Going in.
Ink Magazine, they basically had no they said do whatever you want. They said do whatever you want. I said, cool, I'm gonna do whatever I want. So I had 3 weeks. So I didn't know exactly where I wanted to start, but I know I wanted to examine, redefining our masculinity, but also a man who has lived 1,000 lives, So I started by listening to literally every one of his podcasts, nonstop on 2 times speed, washing the dishes, driving to where I'm driving, on the airplane, TSA. I listened to every podcast, every single one he did. I feel like I know this man.
Wow.
So I did that. I watched every fight. Some of the fights only last a minute.
That's easy, man. You can get through every Mike Tyson fight in about an hour, bro.
I watched every fight. I watched The Hangover where he came watched his HBO special.
Yeah.
And so and then I did how old was he? What year was it when he was 17? You know what I'm saying? So I'm putting together the playlist. And I really felt like a pressure. Like this is the I'm gonna be honest, like this is the metrics Instagram game. So I'm like, all right, like, am I gonna go viral? I want to go viral for the right reasons. So I came up with the idea of having or initially I wanted him like in a flower set off the bottom. I'm like, that feels like cliche. Like it feels real cliche to do like the opposite thing. Like how could I, one, give him his flowers, two, like acknowledge the violence of his upbringing, his life, and his career. And so I'm like, if I simplify it down, but getting rose petals, actually, I'm here, getting rose petals added to real boxing gloves and having them put them on, making them punch it off, right? That was the initial idea I had. So once I came up with that idea, I'm like, okay, I'm going viral, right? This is going viral. I got that Instagram part, by the way. Now, how can I tell this story, like round out the rest of this story of like who this man is? So, he's experimented a lot with psychedelics. I've had some psychedelic experience. I knew as soon as you walked in, what we're going to talk about is like, I heard like you licked a toad and you had a psychedelic experience. I did ayahuasca in Peru. This was my experience. Break down those barriers. Okay, this person like knows who he's talking to. So we only had him. We were only supposed to have him for like an hour or something. He stayed long because we were just chatting. The music was right. You know what I'm saying? He's smoking, doing his thing. We're vibing. Like, and I did research on every photo shoot I can find of Mike Tyson. They either have him with a scowl on his face, like a boxer in a fight, or like real goofy Mr. Hangover. There's no in between. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to focus on the in between. So a lot of time when he first got the camera, he's doing a boxer scowl like he's about to go box. I said, "Nah, we're not doing that. Like we just look at me, just relax, take a deep breath in,
Mm-hmm.
and out. You just look at me right in the camera. That's all we need."
Mm-hmm.
So if you look at his face in most of these, it's just eyes to the camera.
Mm-hmm.
That's all we need. And then for the image that you just showed, um, I had a red spot
Yeah.
light and the background kind of bluish. I knew I can either do that in black or white or color, but the red spot was like representative of like the violence in his life. And
Yeah.
he's actually vibing. Like he's actually nodding his head, enjoying the music,
Mm-hmm.
right there, something like that. But this image, it kind of feels like almost like it feels hellish, right? With the tattoo kind of
Mm.
like horns. But his face is very calm, So it's like it speaks to like to the violence in his life. And it's a soft image and hard at the same time.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned hellish because I think when you hear hellish, you think demonic and evil, right?
Mm,
That's at least that's where my mind goes. But I don't get that type of energy from it.
mm,
And so the red is definitely alarming, but it is the image is soft and he's at peace,
mhm.
right? In his image. And I feel like this is one of the more humanizing photos that I've ever seen of Mike Tyson. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And this just kind of like it's a great depiction of somebody who's had such a complicated life, you
Mhm,
know. Um, so I'm glad to have seen this image in it, and it's so different from this part of the series, right? And what I liked about this image of Mike Tyson, with he's sitting in the chair, there's rose petals on the floor. It looks like some grass or turf, and there's like sort of like a brownish um, backdrop behind him. We can kind of see the grass, not the grass. You can see like the bushes and the trees behind him, and he has on these red gloves made of roses, and he has like this sort of yellowish lime green sweater that it looks like a chinchilla. It's like soft.
mhm.
So everything about how he's presented is just like he's in his soft sweater, rose gloves, and he's just sitting with this calm demeanor. But this is one of the most ferocious beings on the planet,
Yes.
like ferocious.
Yeah.
And you were able to flip it and get the opposite, to get this contrast in his personality. And when I saw that, I was like, that took some guts, that took some planning. That's not something you just walk in and do. And that
Mhm.
to me, I was like, I respect the photographer who did this. You know what I mean?
No tattoo. I faced him the other way.
Mm,
So some of the black and white close up portraits, I put the tattoo in the shadow. Like
mm-hmm,
a lot of people, even though it's for a tattoo mag, I knew I
right.
was gonna get a tattoo anyway
Mm-hmm,
because my price is on his face. That's what made the brief so easy. All like there's a tattoo magazine, he had a tattoo on his face. That means I can do whatever I want.
mm-hmm,
So him facing his tattoo facing away from the camera, 100% intentional. Right. I want you to see him as a man. You know what I'm saying? So some of the black and white portraits are his tattoos in the shadow. You really just focus on his eyes and stare. That's all into even the caption that our caption is on Instagram, like Michael Gerard Tyson. You know, you just don't normally hear his full name
I
like that.
never, I didn't even know he had a middle name.
Exactly. So just like recontextualizing this man who is bad and good and
Mm-hmm,
funny and not, evil at the same time, everything at the same time.
yeah,
And he look like he can beat you up right now, even though he's sitting calmly with the rose petal glove because
yeah,
there's two buttons,
yeah. There's a look in a boxer's eyes. You could tell when somebody's a boxer,
Yeah.
and it's just something about the way that their face is structured after, I guess, taking so many hits or just having a lock in. It's just like you see a boxer when you look in their eyes. You know what I mean? He has that look for real. This image was also super interesting. I mean, I feel like you went in on this, bro. You had like at least three different looks.
Yeah.
Um, right. So right now the image that's up is a film strip that's sort of like making up. It's like of different parts of Mike Tyson's face, from like the eye without on the side without the tattoo, and then to the side with the tattoo, and it's like how many strips? One, two, three, four, five strips right? Like these are actual photos that you did, right?
Yes, it
Right.
took 36 images. The first row I didn't like, so I cut it off. But like 36 individual images, and like I had so much time, and I was such in this world. I'm like, okay, how? And I've been experimenting with trying to figure out how like to do this. I experimented with my neighbor. I'm like, oh, I need a macro lens to get even closer to
Mm-hmm.
make. And I tried to do it on a tripod where like
Mm-hmm.
it's very exacto, but it looked
Mm-hmm.
like template. I'm like, oh, I should if I freehand it, it's gonna look really organic. Some of
Yeah.
them, but like I was thinking like this is a represent like he's lived this many lives. There's a millionaire at 17 from Brownsville.
Yeah.
Didn't graduate high school.
Yeah.
Like what type nobody can relate to this.
Yeah.
So he's lived all these types of lives. So this is kind of representation of like a fragmented person working to pull themselves together. And he acknowledged throughout the day and how he speaks now, like the mistakes that he's made and how he's working to accept like his
Mm-hmm.
broken being. You know what I'm
Mm-hmm.
saying? Fortunate to still be here. But yeah, this is I've been kind of doing more and more of these. It's more of a tactile, I scan them here in my office. Um, and it's one of my favorite types of images that I like to make. And I'm trying to like put a little stamp on it and do it, more often.
Yo, absolutely. And I like what you said about fragmented, right? Because I'm the way I'm looking at it on my screen, right, is it's sort of small as a thumbnail to go along with my notes. And you said fragmented, and when I look at it, it looks almost like shattered glass and like the refraction, like the refracted images within like the shards of glass, right? That's almost what it looks like. And to be able to do so, that looks like that's a super huge benefit of um, shooting film is
Mhm,
that you get to create this effect organically, whereas digital folks would have to take these photos and then go into Photoshop and doctor it to make it look like this. But you actually took something that is already there and
mhm.
just it just has like that organic feel.
Yeah.
And I feel like this is like such a great representation of this man's life. That he's lived so many lives, like you said, right? Like, I feel like this is just a great embodiment of who this man is. Did you ever get to I know sometimes we get called on assignments, we make the work, we put it out there, we never really hear. Sometimes we don't hear back from the publisher, sometimes we never hear back from the person that we photograph. Did you ever
Right.
get to hear any any feedback on these images?
No, the magazine put one post up on Instagram. It's obviously it's a cover of the magazine, so I went and I read. Every time I see it out, I buy a copy. But no, I haven't heard from from my team or Eight Magazine
Mhm.
since. So, but I think it's a great set. It's a set. It's a set of images I'm very proud of. We did a lot of planning. We were able to get so much because we had three completely different lighting
Yeah,
sets. We shot it at the
yeah.
Four Seasons in Beverly Hills, and on one side of the room we shot the red, right?
Hmm.
And this is the opposite side of the room, and then outside the door we shot the outside. So we had three completely separate setups, and we would just he would change, go to set one,
Yep.
change, go to set two, change, go to set three. So because I knew exactly what I wanted because I had spent 3.5 weeks in Mike Tyson world. You know,
Yeah. And so, okay, you had 3.5 weeks to plan. How much
yeah,
time did you have to actually shoot?
an hour and some change.
That's
Hour and some-
gr- that's great.
yeah,
That's great.
including food. That's including changing clothes. Yeah.
That's great. So, for some folks who may not have experienced this yet, right? Not everybody gets an hour with a celebrity, especially someone as big as Mike Tyson. Um, Sometimes you get 5 minutes, sometimes you get an hour, and you get anything in between, right? And Mark, maybe you could talk about the importance of planning, right? You had 3.5 weeks to plan, which is great, but then also because that gives you time to do heavy research, right?
Mhm,
The
mhm,
research part is super important so that you're not walking into a situation blind.
right.
But then you also maybe you could talk to folks about the importance of like getting to the set early to plan each shot so that it is a seamless transition from one scene to the next.
Yeah. I mean, one of kind of, I always have a foundation of how I want people to look at my images, right? A lot of my work is centered around um, ownership of space, right? So
Mm.
even from in front of the mail, the
Yep.
postman truck,
And the
and
bus. Yep.
is a person standing solidly and confidently in a space that they own. This
Hmm.
this square yard that I'm standing in is mine. If I'm sitting in this chair, it's my chair. If I'm in this house, it's my house, right? There's so much history that shows like black bodies not having ownership of their bodies or space, immediate space around them. You know what I'm saying? Like space is a luxury, right? So like foundationally, so I want somebody that looks powerful and strong and comfortable in that space, whether they're slouched up or sitting up, they feel confident that they can do whatever they want in that space. So off top, that is kind of like first direction I'm headed. And then it's the planning piece, like what exactly I want to look like and what is it going to take for me to get this done. 3 setups is a lot. I made negative $5,000 on this shoot, right? Negative $5,000 on the shoot. Had about food, rental. I mean, we had to rent so many assistants, a lot of
Oh,
film.
you spent 5 grand.
I spent $5,000 because I knew what this was.
Hmm.
I could have did it for way cheaper because the magazine didn't have, the editorial doesn't give.
Editorial, yeah.
So I was like, but I knew who this was. So I'm like, this is my opportunity. This is a once in a lifetime opportunity.
Hmm.
This is why I save the money. This I pretty much make the money and spend it on making more art, right?
Yeah.
So this is why I save the money. I know what this could do for me, and I know this opportunity that I want to just flex every muscle I can. That's why we did 50 million different things.
Hmm.
So spent the money on 3 different setups. Had to buy the food at the Four Seasons, which was half the budget.
Fuck.
Because they're like, bro, no outside food. I'm like, bro, I was about to bring some pieces. So we had to get the food, the breakfast from Four Seasons. That was like $2,600.
Are you serious?
It was like I spent just as much on breakfast as I did the lights, but I knew what I had a vision.
Hmm.
There's also a lot of pressure because I'm like, all right, if I'm spending all this money, hey,
It better not.
it better be tight.
Yeah.
So I want to make sure I'm coming in with the intention to make images that last forever. And I think these are some of my best images in his later part of life. I feel like nothing's going to top when he was 17 wearing the belts, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Of course. But like in the back half of his life, the man that he was growing and worked to become, have experienced the loss of a
Mhm.
child,
Yeah.
jail.
Tragic.
So it was like, you know, let me make something that I'll be proud of because this is I feel like this is a lightning rod of a figure. So
I think that's important. I'm glad that you touched on that part of it, right? Because um most times people think you get an assignment and all expenses are paid. And that's usually how it is. Or maybe that's still the perception I have that that's how it is. We don't know how many photographers are um, coming out of pocket in order to make a paid gig look the way they want it to look. We
mhm.
just assume. So I'm glad to hear you mention that you went negative 5K in a hole in the red to make this project happen. And I think that's important for, you know, early career photographers to hear,
Yeah.
right? That sometimes, most times, you have to spend money to make the kind of work that you want to make, that you want to do more of.
Mhm.
You know, um, I do something very similarly where, like, I barely pay myself from some of my gigs so that I can reinvest that money into other projects to do more of the work that I want to do.
Mhm.
And I think that's something that more young photographers need to hear so that they can practice that in their own work.
Yeah. I treat all editorials as investments. I don't expect any money on no editorials,
Hmm.
because I mean, it's just it's a tough medium. People aren't buying magazines like they used to,
Hmm.
so I understand why there's no reasons to go around. But like, if you want the creative freedom that you might not have for a shoot with Nike or a big large brand or Target,
Hmm.
like this is your opportunity to work with the stylist.
Hmm.
Work, you have a location, the Four Seasons. You got
Hmm.
Mike Tyson.
Hmm.
You know, or I call anybody, yo, I'm shooting Mike Tyson. Do you want to help with this? Yeah.
Hmm.
opportunity to do all these. This was several different mood boards crashing into one, you know.
Yeah.
Um, so I invested my time and money into making something, and and I feel good about the images and that success.
Yeah. I mean, I definitely feel like there's a timelessness to them.
Mhm.
I can look at these images now. I know I can look at them 5, 10 years from now and still respect the artist. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? Even if I didn't know the artist, I could look at the images and be like, yeah, this joint knocks. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? I had to include this photo. This photo has like an interesting backstory, right? So this is a photo of Tracy Ellis Ross, and Tracy Ellis Ross is a name that's thrown around my household regularly, right? Because my wife is a twin,
Mhm.
and so her and her twin sister, they actually have some resemblance to Tracy Ellis Ross. So they're always on social talking about she's their triplet or whatever. So they always tag her and other stuff. So it's like it's cool, it's cute. And when our son was maybe like 3, 4 years old, I think there was a Drake video that had her in it. And when she came up on the screen, our son Talib looked at the screen and was like, "Mommy, is that you?"
Wow.
And
Okay.
yeah. So it's super funny to like the relationship they have towards Tracy Ellis Ross. But last year, Crown Mag, CRWN, right? They feature stories about powerful sisters to empower sisters. Um, they For the holidays, I purchased 2 copies of the latest edition, which had Tracy Ellis Ross on the cover. She's wearing like black this black outfit with like white cowrie shells on it. She's like leaning on watermelons. There's a bunch of like fruit in the background. Looks like she could be in Cuba or somewhere in the islands. And then I go and look at the credit of the photographer, and it's you, right? And I was like, yo, this dude is just now popping up all over, man. I was like, that's great. And so I had to include this in there, and I think it's another beautiful depiction. Um, so yeah, I just wanted to speak about this image a little bit, or not just this image, but for you, how do you know? Like this image is beautiful. How do you know when you've created something that has the potential to resonate with other people? How do you know that you created an image that you love?
It just makes me feel good, or it inspires me, or it just it's like sometimes there's good color, there's good composition, good story, good light. Those four things, right? And a good subject. Those things. It's very rare that you can get all four or five of those things in one photo.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes you got a great composition, but it's like it's just nothing in there, or a great talent,
Mm-hmm.
but the composition could be better, or the lighting could be better. There's very few, or the pose can be a little bit different. I
Mm-hmm.
wish some images, even some of the mic type of thing, I wish it was looking at the camera instead of
Mm-hmm.
what I'm saying. So right, it's very rare to it's a nice feeling to find those images when we do find them.
Mm-hmm.
And this is an image I love. She's beautiful, and the lighting is soft with a nice, with a still nice crisp around the
Mm-hmm.
face. It's funny. I got a few comments about the watermelons, uh, and one was like LinkedIn. It's like, oh, why am I? A black person was like, oh, why do you have her leaning on watermelons? Just kind of like a thing. You think about like the stereotype of black people and watermelons, and this stereotype could only exist with the existence of white people.
Mm-hmm.
And in my world, the world that I'm trying to build, only black people exist in this world.
Mm-hmm.
So there's no prejudices about watermelon and black people. In my photo.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, so just like having a kind of a little bit explain that, I feel like
Mm-hmm.
it's kind of was something I didn't expect. I thought people would kind of get it, but that was the reason behind it. But it's Tracy Ellis Ross, man. We took a selfie after I sent it to my mom. She was like, "Oh man, this is good," and she's the sweetest, and hilariously funny, just like on the ground or on TV. So,
Mm-hmm.
and
I want to go back to something before we go too far. You back to the topic of the watermelons. You said you were hoping that people would just get it.
Uh-huh.
What do you mean by that?
Because it's Crown Magazine. So the crooner from Crown Magazine and Lindsay, they've been great. They've been rocking with me since like literally day one. Like
Hmm.
my first editorial ever was Crown Magazine in 2016, 17. You know what I'm saying?
Wow.
So, you know, we had a conversation about this, you
Hmm.
know, who the creative director, you know, wanted this fruit stand or one of these
Hmm.
watermelon. Like, I'm like, okay, I'm with it. Like, you know, this is a very much so a collaboration between myself and the magazine, which is much different than like the Ink magazine, where they're like, here you go, take it. Like
Go wild.
we
Yeah.
work closely together on this. So, um, you got me?
Yeah.
Oh, I got a notification about internet. We work closely together on this. So, you know, those conversations were had about this food stand and how she's, you know, she's juicy, you know, and she lives her best life. She drinks.
That's where my mind was going
Yeah,
with
it's
the
all
watermelons.
yeah, exactly. That's yeah. She's juicy. She's sweet. Like she drinks sipping champagne in a bikini at her age in the pool, and everybody's like, yeah, vote. We love this. You know what I'm saying? Like she's a flyer.
I feel like she's always been regarded for her beauty, but not over sexualized. And I think it feels like she kind of runs with that a little bit too.
Mhm.
Um, but it definitely feels like she's respected for her beauty and the way that she's aging. And so the watermelon like that's sort of like where my mind was going with it. And it's funny because a few weeks ago, a few months, I don't know, sometime this year, I saw, I think like some research saying how, oh, now watermelon is considered one of the healthiest, most nutrient. I'm like, motherfucker, we could have told you. What you think we eat it so much for? Why you think we stay so young and fresh?
Girl, watermelon's delicious. Like
Yo,
right where we
100%. Like, yo, this whole ass watermelon fast. Like,
right,
if you want to detox, like, yo, watermelon will give you the hydration, will give you the nutrients, will give you the vitamins, right? It's gonna clean you out and keep you healthy. Like, that's why we do it. So you take something that we're doing for health purposes, right? And longevity and flip it into something that can be seen as like, you know, stereotypical or what, like that's whack, bro. Like we know why we do certain things and why we stay so fresh. You know what
right.
I mean?
So that's that confidence. That's that ownership. That's a reclamation of space. My,
There we
these are
go.
my watermelons. Your opinion does not matter. You
Hmm.
know,
Yeah,
I'm leaning this
yeah,
way. Yeah.
indeed. This was like another dope image from that set. Another image of Tracy Ellis Ross. Um, but this image is staying consistent with the theme of fruit,
Mhm.
but this image has a for me has a completely different feel. It has more like a painterly feel to it.
Mhm.
Um, I know that you're a self-taught artist. You came from the world of IT, but seeing this image and then hearing your process of making the images with Mike and just how thoughtful you are with a lot of and intentional you are with a lot of the images you make. Like as a self-taught photographer, how do you learn? Where do you find your inspiration? How do you study?
That's a great question, and people ask me this all the time. Like, I learn from the internet, right? And there's a specific way to learn from the internet, and that's by going outside first. So when I was learning photography, I would go out, try to shoot something, and I would encounter a problem. Like, why does my camera so dark? And I would go to Google and I would Google it and watch the YouTube video, and I got it. I
Hmm.
would go out and shoot some more. And be like, why is it so grainy or why is it blurry? I would Google it. Oh, the shutter speed, blah, blah. And I would just go out, get stuck, look it up. Go out, get stuck, look it up. Now my internet searches are much different. Do I pre-flash on my handprints, you know, in the darkroom, right? Like my searches are getting more complicated because I'm going out, I'm running into a roadblock, and I'm Googling it. That's pretty much how I learn. But the key part, you can watch tutorials till you're blue in the face all day.
Hmm.
It won't help you unless you go out there and you mess something up, right? That's just the only way to learn, you
And
know?
having a vision for something first, right?
Or even on this shoot, this photo, so I was this was the first look of the day, right?
Mm.
And I did not know that my RZ battery was low. Okay. It was just a red light was coming on that I did not recognize and I did not know what it was. And then we had some issues with the light where we're trying to figure out. And my heart was beating out of my chest. And Tracy was looking around like, all right, we just started now. She's looking around like, okay, does this guy know what he's doing? You know, and then I'm like, then we got over it and like, okay, we shot it out. The pictures came out good. I built my confidence over the day. You know, we're selfish by the end of the day, but like she's a respected professional. She expects professionals to be on set with her. So she was challenging for me. She challenged me to be better, more efficient, right? So but this is the first look of the day, and this is Tracy Ellis Ross. I was a little nervous, like I still nervous. But it went swimmingly. But then I learned when I got home, what does this red light mean? Now when I go shoot my RZ, I'm bringing an extra battery every time. Now I know exactly what it is.
And it's not a regular ass battery, right? It's like something specialized. It's like one of those little circular joints that you can't just run into the bodega and grab, right?
Nah. But that's just like a small example of like just going out and making a mistake of encountering a roadblock, and then that's the only way you can learn. Like I have to go out and make a mistake. Like photography is a game of losses, bro. You shoot 1,000 photos, you got 20 good ones. Everybody's like hip hip hooray, right? You know. So but you lost 800 times. You know, so it's like my math is off. Apologies, podcast listeners and viewers, but like it was really like a game. It's a medium of failure. I was shooting a roll of 36 frames. I get one good one. Yay, that's great.
Sometimes we don't get a good one out of that, right?
Don't get mine. Exactly. So like you have to be willing, you have to seek out and be willing to fail. You have to like pursue failure. You have to, it's just like going to the gym. You know, you're lifting that weight till you can't lift the next rep. That's how you
grow.
That's how you build muscle, right?
Yep.
So, leaning into making those mistakes, and that's one of my challenges now is like, I don't want to make these mistakes and the big shoots. That's why I'm focusing on like doing smaller little one shoots, bringing the homies together. Let's try some stuff.
Yeah.
That is the best way to continue to get better. Now, I need to follow my own advice. It's tough. I'm a father that's very engaged in the work that it takes to be a father. I got a wife, I got bills, I gotta get these, I gotta get these gigs. So it's really hard sometimes for me to find that space and time to grow and make these mistakes. And so the stakes are high, but I haven't, sometimes I'll go between two gigs, not shooting anything between every 2 weeks, which is, a challenge that I'm still working to overcome, and really understanding that I am a photographer. And what do photographers do? They make images.
Yeah.
Whether you're tired, whether you don't feel good, shoot. And so it's really just about committing to myself to make sure that I'm making work even when I'm not motivated. Because what is motivation? You know what I'm saying? It's the work that we should be doing as image makers. So, that's a very long answer to say, like, how do you get better? It's a combination of mindset and being willing to fail.
As you say that, I'm sitting here like, it's the last time I went out and made images. I got ideas. It's like, there's no excuses. I definitely want to make more of these images and these ideas come to life. But again, like you said, being a father, running a company, on a podcast, and just trying to live and find some freaking clarity, right? Is like, sometimes it's like, do I push myself to make these images, or do I shut it down for the night and just like chill, watch something for fun? I think that's something that's been one of the most challenging things for me, is to turn my brain off and just, because even when I watch stuff now, I'm like, well, I got to watch something that's going to inspire me and educate me. So let me watch documentaries. And sometimes documentaries like are too heavy. I want to watch some goofy shit, right? Like I just want to like just tune out, right? So, but I do want to get some of those ideas out there because, they're in my mind for a reason. Right now, let's get them out there into the world, right? So this last image is sort of like ending how we started, in a sense,
Mhm.
right? And this is one of those images that I saw before I knew who you were.
Mhm.
And this is the image of it's probably like 2020 during the protest. 21?
2020, yeah,
Yeah,
2020.
2020. It's an image of black man, his fist is up. He has a do rag on, a black do rag, and in front of him, and his back is turned, but in front of him is he's in front of the Trump Tower, and you see the a big U.S. flag above the sign that says Trump Tower, and there's several other people that have their fist up, and it's a powerful image. And I know like this image has like traveled the world and has been turned into T-shirts and posters, and I mean, so it looks like people are finding so much inspiration in some of the images you're making that they're recreating them, and it's taking a life of their own. And
Mhm.
that to me is probably one of the best compliments as an artist when your image goes off and like now people are making their own depictions of your image. Um, if you had to start your photography journey from scratch, right?
Mhm.
Knowing what you know now, what are like the first few things that you would do? And this is geared towards like the younger early career photographers who like might be stuck or don't know what the next move should be. But you knowing everything that you know, having accomplished some of the things that you've accomplished, if you had to start over from scratch, what would you do?
Oh, from scratch. Um, I would, if I had to start over from scratch today, I would have my camera, whatever camera it is. I would go start taking pictures of literally anything you want. How I started was taking pictures in New York City with my phone.
Hmm.
Around the city, I'm from Florida. This is cool.
Yeah.
Iron building. Um, but I did that. No, did that. Um, I didn't really make work that was actually interesting. Like even if I was taking portraits of people, I didn't make work that was actually interesting until I knew who my audience was, who I was speaking to. So when I first started like photography, I'm like, I'm going to show larger America that Black people are viable and can be seen and be in these campaigns. Like this is, we should be on our billboards and stuff like that. And my focus was like larger America. Like, oh, my focus is look, everybody, look what Black people can do. That was what I thought my audience was. And after making the work and like just it was fun and just taking as many pictures of what I thought was my thesis and what I was trying to do, I actually realized no, my audience is not larger America or a larger world showing people what Black people do. My audience is Black people. So like, look, Black people, did you know about these other Black people? Kind of what I spoke about earlier in this chat was like my audience is my people, and the nuances and the inside jokes and the
Hmm.
things that we kind of relate to. Can we smell it? Like that's my audience. So I had to make images to like redefine who my audience was, right? And like over time, my audience has probably shifted a little bit, but I think that was the most important thing is my perspective. I think Instagram, listen, whatever everybody said, I get lost on Instagram too. I be scrolling. That's just my number one vice.
Hmm.
A lot of times you see all these firework, great work. Oh, I want to do that. I want to do that. I want to do that too. I want to do that too. And that's fine, but like try not to get distracted about the fleeting image that you're scrolling past. And really figure out what it is that you want to make, right? And it doesn't have to, be a monetizable thing at first. I feel like a lot, especially, post, post COVID, everybody's like, oh, I got this new hobby. How can I make money? How can I get a sponsor? How can I do like I was just taking pictures, bro, have fun. Like I wish knowing what I know now, I would have had more fun then. I was so
Hmm.
focused on trying to be a pro, trying to be not I am a pro. Like the lines are so blurred between work and fun because what I do as a hobby photographer is also what I do as a professional. So I'm in capture one, bouncing in between, but it doesn't feel the same because I'm not able to have as much fun because I got deliverables,
Yeah.
bro. So if you're just starting out, meet people, collaborate with each other, build together, and have fun with photography. Test it out, fail, be bad. Being bad is fun. Like I go golfing, I'm terrible. There's no expectations. So if you're just starting, there's no
Yeah,
expectations. There's no pressure.
yeah,
This image, this Trump Tower image, which I've spoken about extensively, after I made this image and it went everywhere in all the magazines, all the companies that I ever imagined called me the same week, right? The amount of pressure that I felt to make another one of those
mm,
was insane. I felt like I had to hit another home run, and it really like it took me like a year almost to recover from like the high of this image and the low of the fact that all the success came because of George Floyd's killing.
yes. That's something that a lot of people don't talk about enough. Is like so many, and a lot of photographers who have been on the podcast um, during like the pandemic and the protests. Like, yo, some of my friends were like getting calls nonstop,
Yeah,
nonstop, and some folks, yo, they were back to 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 back protests. That they had to walk like 200 miles a week.
yeah,
You know what I mean? Like
yeah,
I'm not even joking. Like 200 miles a week type of thing, right? They're out there 13 miles a day, right? And getting getting some recognition, some success, so a bunch of gigs in their pocket, interviews, and all of these things for these photos. Publications calling them out of nowhere, like, "Do you have any more photos? Do you have any more photos?" Right? All based on pain,
yeah,
right? So to hear you mention like you had to, like dealing with the success of an image that was rooted in a painful experience is like that's real. We don't talk about that enough. You know what I mean?
yeah. And as black artists of any medium, I remember asking myself, like, bro, is this what it costs? Like a blood sacrifice? Is this what it
Hmm.
costs
Hmm.
for these? It costs somebody being killed for
Hmm.
that I man that I do not ever met and don't know.
Hmm.
Like, um, is this the cost?
Yeah.
As any artist, I feel like we're always intrinsically tied to this plan. Whether no matter what type of art we're making, it could be art strictly about joy. But when there's pain in our community, the attention comes back to us, and every time the spotlight comes back to us, we think about that. Like,
Yeah.
dang, just because of that, and how long is this going to last for me, and the guilt that like I wasn't shooting Nike campaigns before this photo.
Hmm.
I wasn't shooting international campaigns before this photo.
Hmm.
This photo, I was. Now, millions and millions and millions of people have seen this image. It's in textbooks,
Hmm.
etc. Right? But at the cost, like at what cost? So
Yeah.
every dollar that I make since then, I think about George Floyd every single day. You
Mm.
know, so it's like it weighs heavy, and like I talked about it, years ago, and I finally have like distance. I finally have some distance from it,
Yeah.
right? In 4 years, and even some of the same editors that are like, things when things are slow, I'll reach out to some of them same editors, no response, and
Hmm.
I'm better. I'm better a photographer now than I was then. You
Yeah.
know what I'm saying? So it's that challenge of being a black artist. Obviously, nobody should feel sorry for themselves about this because I've been able to make a living. But there's always a name in the back of my head of George Floyd's family,
Mm.
who still don't have their family member. You
Yeah.
know, and the success that so many of us have had,
Yeah.
as what feels like a result of this. When in actuality, a lot of those things that we accomplished since this moment, we were overdue for.
Yeah.
We were overdue for these opportunities, and then finally the spotlight comes to
Yeah.
us, and then, oh yeah, you're overdue. We should didn't have you shooting some of this stuff.
Yeah. But
So
then it's problematic when it stops, and it's like because there's no more uh, pain and violence, right? At least immediate
right.
pain and violence, right?
Hmm.
Um, and I'm not even gonna lie. Like there was a point where I was like, "Yo." maybe I need to go hit the streets and cover protests, and because this is what I'm seeing like my colleagues doing and getting like those new opportunities. Man, maybe I need to like be out there documenting this stuff. And it did not feel good to me
Mhm.
because I mean, like it was hard to turn off the switch of protesting versus photographing. And then also part of me felt really uh I was affected by just the thought of maybe this is an opportunity to kind of get a little bit more in the game. And I
Yeah,
was like, oh, I felt disgusting
yeah.
because of that.
Yeah, I'm like, am I opportunist? Like,
Yeah.
I didn't know I was gonna make this image.
Hmm.
You know, I immediately thought of Devin Allen.
Yeah.
You know, um, and the work that he does. Where I've had a chance to talk to him, I feel like he can relate to this experience.
Hmm.
Tank.
Yeah.
And it's challenging the weight that sometimes these things can have. Like you strive for success, right? But you never know what it's going to look like to check off some of these boxes that you wanted to check off.
Yeah.
And the circumstances in which they come.
On that note, bro, I think we're gonna put we're gonna stick a fork in it there, man. I think well said. Well said. I'm happy you were able to make the image and that it was able to. I mean, it is going to live on, right? It's going to live on, and it opened up a lot of doors and opportunities for you to still make the type of work that feels meaningful to you,
Mhm.
that you have control over. A little bit of control over um, how you're presenting Black folks by putting them in those spaces where it's their space, right?
Mhm.
And giving them ownership and agency. So kudos to you for that. Much respect there. And yo, thank you for sharing your story with our folks, man. Why don't you go ahead and tell the folks this is Mark Clennon and you're tuned in to the Black Shutter Podcast.
This is Mark Clennon, and you're tuned in to the Black Shutter Podcast.